The best diet for you is one that is... Welcome to the Start Here Breather Show. As you may know, I recorded a comprehensive episode. One of my bucket list goals on the podcast was to record a comprehensive episode and title it Start Here, so you could share with a potential new listener, where I cover the big picture topics of how to lead a long, healthy, happy life, categorized as the first category, sleep, recovery and downtime. Then I talk about diet. Then I talk about exercise. Then I talk about stress management. And that show was quite lengthy and quite detailed on each of those categories. I think it's a great Start Here episode to go really deep, but I also feel like it needs a companion short show where we can just dabble in each of those categories that I mentioned and give you those big picture insights that will hopefully compel you to listen to a much more detailed show, or just have some great takeaway knowledge and information to make simple changes in your life without getting overwhelmed by complexity and detail. So here we go with a Start Here Breather Show. This is basically turning on the recording, listening, and then cleaning up your life and getting more healthy and more closely aligned with perhaps your health and fitness goals. So number one category, sleep, recovery, and downtime. Why is that first? Because all other health and fitness goals flow downstream from getting adequate sleep. And I don't just mention sleep, I also say recovery and downtime, because today, unlike any other time in the history of humanity, we have an urgent need to also build in forms of recovery and de-stressing from the constant stimulation, hyperconnectivity, and hectic pace of modern life. So yes, indeed, the priority is to carve out a nice big chunk of evening sleep every night and do whatever you can to set that up correctly. But also during your busy, hectic day, figuring out ways to build in downtime and recovery from other forms of stress, including exercise, training, and the busyness and hectic workday. So when it comes to sleep, the evening sleep block, the number one objective is to minimize artificial light and digital stimulation after dark. So when the sun sets in your area, whatever latitude you're at, whatever time of year, you want to make a mental note to start winding things down. I know in the winter when it sunsets at 5 p.m. And it doesn't get bedtime doesn't come until 10 or 11. That's a lot of downtime and winding down. But really, our bodies are meant to slow everything down a bit during the winter months and get away with less sleep in the summer months and more activity, knowing that the days are longer, lighter, and warmer. So the objective here is to gracefully proceed to that designated bedtime by engaging in less screen, less stimulation, and a lighter, a progressively darker environment as the hours accumulate toward bedtime, and a special effort in the final hour before bedtime to ideally get off screen and engage in calming, relaxing rituals. Arianna Huffington's book, The Sleep Revolution, she talks about drawing your bath and enjoying a nice hot bath, and then getting into your pajamas, teaching your brain that changing your clothes and going through this transition is a ritual to prepare you to get sleepy and fall asleep nicely. Reading in bed is the last thing. I use a little spy light, like a miner's lamp, that I put on my forehead so that the room can be really dark, and that'll be my last act from a dark room with a little bit of light for reading. Turn off that light, and you're much more likely to fall asleep gracefully than if you are blasting the Netflix streaming from a giant television screen in a brightly lit room and then tell yourself, oh, it's 10:30, time to go to bed. Your body likes to gradually and gracefully transition from a light, energetic, active day to a dark, mellow evening. So that's minimizing artificial light and digital stimulation. Second, you want to build in that downtime from hyperconnectivity and constant digital stimulation throughout the day. So that might mean taking a break from your work screen or your workplace, getting outside, engaging with nature, sitting on a bench for 5 minutes and staring off into space, all these lost arts that we deserve to reclaim to help the brain rebalance the neurochemicals that help our neurons fire, and all these things that leave us feeling literally fried at the end of a busy, stressful, hectic day. When I say fried, I'm talking about an imbalance between the sodium-potassium pumps in the brain that causes your brain to not fire correctly because the electric signaling is become fried. So downtime, very valuable. And of course, striving to create a balance between work and leisure time as you go through a busy day. Now we go on to diet, and to really make things simple and get you focused on taking really important and decisive action. The most important objective for diet is to cut out the processed foods. So before we even talk about strategizing and scrutinizing our macros or our whatever diet fad of the day that you're going to embark upon, the first thing is we can't even have a conversation until you eliminate nutrient-deficient, highly refined processed foods. And we talk about, in many of our books, Mark Sisson and I talk about the big three, and the categories would be refined industrial seed oils, also known as vegetable oils, refined grains, and refined sugars, and all the processed products that are made with them. So you're talking about packaged, frozen, heavily processed foods, snacks, frozen meals, all that kind of stuff. And it's as simple as scrutinizing labels. If that's not your thing, it's time to start reading labels and looking for all the chemicals and the preservatives that are on there and staying away from heavily processed foods. That gives you the ability, the potential to emphasize natural, nutrient-deficient, easy-to-digest foods that come from the earth and are minimally processed. If you've been listening, you know about the ancestral health movement or the primal paleo diet movement that I've been promoting for so many years. And it's pretty simple. It's informed by the wonderful scientific study that's lasted 2 million years called human evolution. And essentially, our species evolved and thrived upon a pretty comprehensive list of foods, but it's pretty easy to memorize. And here they go: meat, fish, fowl, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Those are the foods of the earth that the human is naturally adapted to digest and assimilate and become nutrient dense rather than nutrient deficient when we're talking about processed foods. Now, you don't have to eat every single one of those foods every day. And if you don't like vegetables and you don't like eggs, or you insist upon a vegan diet where you're restricting many of the most nutritious foods that have fueled human evolution for 2 million years, you can probably do okay. It's a high risk to eliminate the main foods of human evolution. But if you simply eliminate those processed foods, you will have a massive health awakening if you just choose the foods that are most enjoyable and a dietary pattern that is most sustainable to you. So the best diet for you is one that is psychologically pleasing, sustainable, and features natural, nutrient-dense foods. You also want to create relaxing meal times and do your best within your budget and your availability to source the best types of foods in each of those categories. So we know there's a wide range of meat products that you can buy, from the heavily processed meals to the fantastic grass-fed beef that you order off your favorite resource in the internet, or the wild-caught salmon that's flown in from Alaska at great expense. But you do the best you can, and you can find when you go to bradkearns.com and download the Carnivore Scores Food Rankings chart. You can print this colorful chart out, put it on your refrigerator, and you'll discover that many of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth are extremely budget-friendly, such as fresh fruit, such as oily cold water fish category, such as ground beef, which is extremely nutritious and can be found for an affordable budget expense. So that's the basics of diet. Now let's jump over to exercise. And the number one objective for your exercise and for your physical fitness is to increase all forms of general everyday movement, the centerpiece of which would be walking, the quintessential form of human locomotion. Mark Sisson and I are super excited to announce a forthcoming book with the title Born to Walk that is coming soon in late 2024. And we'll talk about how walking is the centerpiece of human health. It is our genetic expectation that we be in near constant movement throughout the day. Of course, we're constrained now by modern life and sitting a lot of time in front of a screen or in a car, but you do the best you can to intersperse opportunities to walk throughout the day. Walking and other forms of movement, including formal movement practices such as yoga and Pilates and Tai Chi, all kinds of movement counts many, many gold stars toward your health objectives. And that is ranked higher than adhering to a devoted fitness regimen. Of course, you can get all kinds of additional benefits from getting strong in the gym and building your endurance with properly paced cardiovascular exercise and doing that ultimate primal exercise of sprinting to get massive fitness benefits and weight loss benefits in a short time. The greatest return on investment of any exercise is sprinting, doing something that's all out or near all out. High impact is great, but if you're not ready for that, you can also sprint on an exercise bike, a cardio machine, things that are low impact and doable for most everyone. So number one, increase all forms of movement. And then number two, we get into the primal fitness objectives of low-level cardiovascular exercise, brief, intense resistance workouts, and brief, explosive, all-out sprints. It's very, very simple. You don't have to program into all these advanced and complex protocols unless you're having fun and you enjoy it and you love going to the gym and you love taking this class and that class. Remember that any form of movement is a huge bonus, and then you can go deep into the fitness realm and pursue additional benefits, provided you do it correctly. So the strength training sessions should be emphasizing full body functional movements where you put your muscles under some form of resistance load. That could be body weight only exercises, such as standing up from your desk and doing a set of deep squats, or doing push-ups, doing plank exercises, or you can use all the weights, the stretch tubing, things that put your muscles under resistance and cause you to perform brief efforts to near muscular failure. So you want to be breathing hard and feeling those muscles working hard or burning towards the end of your set. And that's your objective for strength training. Sprinting, pretty simple. You do brief all-out efforts, near all-out, of lasting between 10 to 20 seconds ideally. So nothing longer than that can truly be characterized as a sprint. I've done entire shows on how to sprint correctly. So you want to throw down 10 to 20 second efforts, whether it's on the bike, whether it's running upstairs, anything to get your body out there and sprinting once in a while. You hardly have to do it at all to reap these wonderful benefits. So once every 7 to 10 days is fantastic. Low impact, work up to ideally higher impact, such as sprinting upstairs, sprinting up hills, and eventually sprinting on flat ground. If you're interested in reducing excess body fat, sprinting delivers by far the greatest return on investment of any workout, because it prompts the genetic signaling for fat reduction, because carrying excess body fat when you sprint, when you go all out, is a huge penalty, unlike shuffling down the street for hours and hours if you're a jogger trying to lose excess body fat. We talk about this a lot in the book, where it really doesn't align with weight loss goals. The endurance running has just been a big giant ruse and a big giant failure for many devoted runners, especially running at too elevated of a heart rate and having these exhausting, fatiguing workouts simply prompt an increase in appetite and increase in laziness throughout the day. So that's your exercise objectives. Move more throughout the day, engage in an appropriate amount of cardio, such as hiking on the weekend or riding on the stationary bike a bit here and there, but also add that high intensity stuff, which gives you the best fitness benefits, strength training and sprinting. And now we go to stress management. And what you want to avoid are chronically stressful patterns in your life. One of them would be chronically stressful exercise patterns. So there's a huge segment of the physical fitness world where people are overdoing it and compromising their health because of an extreme, exhausting approach to fitness, especially in the endurance scene. And also in a different way, the gym freaks that are doing so many classes every week, or the CrossFit enthusiasts who are going 4 to 5 days a week and chronically overproducing stress hormones in the interest of getting through these challenging workouts every single day. So if you're in that extreme category, you want to tone things down, avoid the chronic patterns, slow down if you're an endurance athlete and get your heart rate in the proper fat burning zone, rather than dabbling in the sugar burning zones too frequently and leading to that breakdown, burnout, illness, and injury. You can also put on the objective to avoid chronic working patterns where you're overworking, where you're flipping up the screen in your off hours and you can't stay away from your mobile device and answering and engaging and communicating. We need downtime. The brain needs downtime to refresh and re-energize so it can perform at peak cognitive capacity when you demand that. If you refuse to do so, you will be stuck in what British researcher James Hewitt calls the cognitive middle gear, where you'll be drawn to low cognitive demand tasks and doing that all day long, shuffling papers around your desk, as they used to say. Now it's like shuffling windows around your computer, but not really accessing your highest cognitive abilities because you're too tired and burnt out. So avoiding chronic patterns. I also mentioned getting that downtime, that rest and that sleep that you need all the time. That also includes recovery, building in the proper recovery to your fitness regimen, making absolutely sure that you don't sniff anything remotely considered to be chronic or overly stressful when it comes to fitness. Then we have other objectives for stress management, like prioritizing social time, which is easily discarded and de-emphasized today. It's easy to isolate and engage with screens to the excess where we're kind of missing out on live interpersonal relationships that humans are really built for and really need for mental, emotional, psychological health. So figure out a way to prioritize social time. And yes, indeed, you have to go out of your way these days it's just like the criticism of modern child rearing, where you have to schedule play dates. And in the old days, we just hung out outside until it got dark and then we ran in for dinner. Now you have to go out of your way to set up social engagements because we are so locked into the digital world. It's also an objective to engage with nature because, again, it's very easy to completely disengage with the natural environment and instead spend a lot of times in cars, offices, and homes engaging with screens and digital entertainment. So you have to put yourself in a position to succeed by scheduling time out in nature and making that part of your life. There's also an objective to engage in solo reflective time. What's that? Yeah, it's pretty much gone these days because even when you are by yourself and maybe feeling overstressed, burnt out, anxious, whatever it is, there's a common tendency to engage with a device to de-stress and decompress. So very important to just have time alone in nature, alone with your thoughts and reflecting on your past, your future, your purpose on the planet, all that good stuff that we've snuffed out with streaming entertainment. Finally, and perhaps right up there with the ranking of sleep as number one from the starting point, we want to prioritize our love relationships. It can really make or break your entire picture of health and longevity. My podcast guest, Dr. John Gray, states that a loving, long-term romantic partnership has the greatest increase in lifespan of anything ever measured. According to the references, he's saying that it can add 7 years to your life. And if you have a dysfunctional, stressful, struggling relationship, it can definitely tank your hormones, spike your stress hormones, destroy your health, not to mention your enjoyment and appreciation of life. So nurture that love relationship, prioritize that love relationship. If you're single, it might be prioritizing that love relationship with yourself so you can be in a good position to have all manner of love relationships if it's not a formal, traditional romantic partnership. But this is a necessity to put that at the very top of the list and spend the time and energy and do the work necessary to make sure that you snuff out the common tendency to plunge into dysfunction or distract away from your most important relationships in your life with any number of coping mechanisms, avoiding big issues, being afraid to talk about it, and just ignoring and plugging along through life. And then you could also put in this category, making sure that you're indulging in entertainment, taking vacations, celebrating the ordinary and the special moments of life. And that is a beautiful package for stress management. So quick recap of what this show was all about. The Start Here episode with the important matters to reflect on to lead a long, healthy, happy life. It starts with sleep, recovery, and downtime, especially that evening pattern of minimizing artificial light and digital stimulation. Then we go to diet, where you got to get rid of the big three toxic modern processed foods: refined industrial seed oils, also known as vegetable oils, and refined grains and sugars, and all the crappy food that is made with refined agents. That will help you emphasize natural, nutritious foods, including the primal pattern of meat, fish, fowl, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seed. And make sure that your meal times are quiet, stressful, and enjoyable. Make sure that the diet that you follow is psychologically pleasing. When it comes to exercise, number one, increase all forms of general everyday movement. That is number one objective, centerpiece being walking. And then with the primal fitness approach, we want to build our cardiovascular endurance with steady state exercise. We also want to engage in brief, intense strength training workouts where you put your muscles under resistance load for brief, intense efforts, pushing your muscles to near failure, working full body functional movements. That's why everyone loves squats and deadlifts so much. They engage so many different muscle groups. And then finally, occasional all-out sprints, whether it's on low-impact exercise equipment or ideally high-impact running, or at least running up hills or upstairs. And all you have to do is sprint for 10 to 20 seconds. You take a lot of rest in between those sprints. A 6-to-1 ratio is a recommended minimum. So if you're sprinting for 10 seconds, you rest for a minute, and you only have to do a handful of those. 4 to 8 would be plenty for a successful sprint workout. And then the final category, stress management. And I talked about an assortment of different ways. One of them is avoiding chronic exercise or work patterns, making sure you prioritize downtime, rest, recovery, and sleep, engaging in nurturing social relationships, prioritizing that, as well as engaging with nature, making sure you have some solo reflective time in your life, and prioritize your romantic love relationship, your relationship with yourself as well, and other love relationships that you have in your life. Celebrating, getting on vacation, busting loose once in a while, and that's a nice little recipe for setting yourself up for success. Again, way more details on a show of a similar title where I get in deeply into each of these points and give you some more practical guidance. I'd love to hear from you, how things are working. Maybe you have some other special tips that we can cover in future shows. So please engage by emailing podcast@bradventures.com. Thanks for listening and watching to the Start Here Breather Show.